there's an understanding here, Michael, that US is reluctant in speaking to the Premier of Pakistan. Prime Minister Imran Khan, National Security Advisor, has given an interview and it said that if he's not willing to talk to us, then we have more options as well. So before they head to those options, why do you think there is a distance or there's a disconnect between two premiers of the most important countries of the region?
Well, it's a fair question. And I think given the messaging coming from the Biden administration about the important role that it sees Pakistan playing in the Afghanistan story, it is a bit of a surprise and I think a disappointment that there has not been this call. But I think that there has been a significant level of engagement, high-level engagement between the two sides. The U.S. Secretary of State and Defense Secretary have been in touch with senior officials in Pakistan. But I think at the end of the day, it says something about the nature of the U.S.-Pakistan relationship. It's very transactional, and I think that from the administration's perspective, it would want to have that call between Biden and Prime Minister Khan, but only when there's something significant that's been achieved, or something to announce, or something to talk about, something concrete, and that could entail some type of breakthrough in the intra-Afghan dialogue or something like that. So I think that this administration doesn't want for there to be a call between the two leaders just for the sake of having the call. And this is very different, of course, from what you had with the Trump administration, when President Trump, as you'll recall, had a call with Nawaz Sharif very early on. There wasn't really that much to talk about, and President Trump, he basically said that the Prime Minister was a great guy, and it came off very well, certainly from Pakistan's perspective. But it's a different story with the current administration. I just think that it is not opposed to a call between the two leaders, but it wants to wait until there's a more opportune moment when there's something substantive between the two sides to be discussed or finalized in that call.
Right. Okay. Stay with me. General Mustafa, I'm jumping towards you. The same question that I've asked to Mr. Kugelman, that there is a disconnect between the two premiers, and Pakistan, especially the National Security Advisor, has said that we would execute and look for another option or multiple options. What do you think is the reason, and what are the possible options that Pakistan going to execute?
To begin with, I think President Biden was conveying a very strong message to Pakistan. And that message is what we must understand. And the message is that you fall in line and you do what I tell you, or what the United States of America wants. If not, then of course this kind of attitude can go anywhere. So that, I think, the message should be very clearly understood. And I think our National Security Advisor should have answered accordingly. But anyway, whatever he said, Pakistan has the options now. As opposed to what was the situation way back in the beginning of the century and the last decade of the last century. Pakistan now has options, and options are very clear now. And the options are that this region now is east to east. This east to east approach that Pakistan and the other countries of this region are barring, let's say, India. Let's say the countries seem to understand this major change, major shift in the geoeconomics, so to say, or let's say geostrategy, or whatever you might like to call it. That is something that you understood. The balance of power is gradually shifting away from where it used to be, and the focus is now somewhere else. So that is something that Pakistan understands, and that is how I think Pakistan's policies are coming out. When we may not have said so openly, other than Prime Minister, because Prime Minister was very categorical that our relationship with China, not at any other cost. So that's, I think, very, very clear. Pakistan is very clear.
So is there any other option than the China, or you think there are some other countries on which Pakistan can focus or should focus apart from China?
One must understand. In the international politics, there is no this approach, zero-sum game is not played. Pakistan had been doing that, but now I think Pakistan is grown beyond that. We don't want to spoil a relationship with the United States of America. Of course, there's a superpower, maybe on the van, all right, but it's still a superpower. And it's everybody's neighbor. We don't want to spoil the relationship with the United States of America. But at the same time, where do we find our interests best served? That is what Pakistan has to understand. Our interests are best served by helping or reaching out or accommodating those countries which are in the region, which have an interest in and around Pakistan, in Afghanistan, let's say, and who are not too divergent on other issues. So therefore, I think Pakistan has Iran close by, Pakistan has Russia, Pakistan has China, Turkey isn't too averse to what Pakistan is saying. We have Malaysia almost talking the same language that Pakistan is talking. We don't have any differences with them on that account. And there are other countries like Indonesia that Pakistan reach out to. And those smaller countries about which Pakistan rarely talks, who when they sit in the UN, they have a vote each. Although it may not matter, but the fact is that if out of 200 odd nations sitting in UN, if majority of them vote on what Pakistan are, the Pakistan-sponsored resolution, that will count for something.
Right. So, Michael, how do you see the situation unfolding in Afghanistan, especially the control of Taliban? I mean, there are multiple reports like 70%, and some are claiming like 80% of the control in different areas of Afghanistan. What is your take about the situation there on ground?
Well, it's clearly very troubling, and I think the most immediate concern is the humanitarian crisis. What we've seen over the course of this year, even before these most recent Taliban offensives picked up in the spring, is displacement. Several 100,000 Afghans have been internally displaced this year, and the toll on civilians is really quite heartbreaking. The UN has been estimating that several dozen civilians were killed in Lashkar Gah in a 24-hour period alone earlier this week. So I think that that's the immediate concern.